Hundreds of human soldiers' corpses littered the radioactive wasteland that was once a thriving alien city, their blood staining the cracked pavement black under the harsh glare of Zeta Prime's twin suns. This was why the Galactic Council decided humans should never again fight in their wars. The scene was carnage, unmitigated slaughter. The insectoid Krath warriors had been torn limb from limb, the stench of their ichor permeating the wreckage of shattered vehicles and ruined structures. James Adams, a battle-scarred Human Alliance space marine, sat shackled in a dimly lit interrogation room aboard the Gamelon flagship, his unwavering gaze fixed upon the door. His face sported bruises, his uniform in tatters. He knew what was coming. Pryler, a high-ranking Gamelon military official, stormed into the room, rage etched across his reptilian features. He demanded answers. Why had James and his squad defied the Council's direct orders? Why had they unleashed such unrestrained brutality upon the Krath? James remained silent, his jaw clenched tight. He remembered the weight of his decision, the moment he chose to stand against the Council's mandate to abandon the Zetan artifact and the innocent civilians. He knew the price of failure, the stakes that hung in the balance. The fate of the galaxy itself rested upon his actions, and he would be damned if he let the Council's cowardice doom them all. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the lush jungle canopy that stretched out before the small outpost on Zeta Prime. James Adams stood at the edge of the clearing, his eyes scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. Behind him, his squad went about their daily routines, checking weapons and supplies, running drills, and maintaining the outpost's defenses. "Hey, Cap," called out Maverick, jogging up to James with a grin on his face. "Zoran and Tallinn are here to see you. Something about a legend and an artifact." James nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'll be right there." He made his way to the center of the outpost, where Zoran and Tallinn waited, their faces lined with age and wisdom. Zoran held out his hand, clasping James's forearm in a traditional Zetan greeting. "Captain Adams," Zoran said, his voice deep and resonant, "I have something of great importance to share with you." James raised an eyebrow. "What is it, Zoran?" The elder gestured for James to follow him to a secluded corner of the outpost. "There is an ancient artifact, known as the Zetan Codex," he began, his eyes glinting with a mix of reverence and fear. "It is said to possess immense power and knowledge, capable of ending the war that has ravaged our galaxy for so long." James leaned in, his interest piqued. "Where is this codex?" Zoran shook his head. "Its location is a closely guarded secret, passed down through generations of Zetan elders. But there is a prophecy, one that speaks of a being of pure heart and noble intentions who will one day wield the codex and bring peace to the galaxy." Tallinn stepped forward, his young face filled with hope. "Many of our people believe that you, Captain Adams, may be the one the prophecy speaks of." James was taken aback. "Me? I'm just a soldier, Tallinn. I don't know anything about ancient artifacts or prophecies." Zoran placed a hand on James's shoulder. "You underestimate yourself, Captain. Your actions speak louder than your words. You and your squad have shown great compassion and bravery in defending our people from the Krath. That is the mark of a true hero." Before James could respond, the outpost's comm system crackled to life. "Captain Adams, incoming transmission from Galactic Council Command." James excused himself and made his way to the comm room, where the holographic image of Admiral Valen flickered to life. The Gamelon officer's face was stern, his eyes narrowed. "Captain Adams," Valen barked, "I have new orders for you and your squad. The Krath are preparing for a major offensive on Zeta Prime. We cannot risk them obtaining the Zetan Codex. You are to evacuate immediately and leave the artifact behind." James felt a surge of anger. "With all due respect, Admiral, we can't abandon the Zetans or the Codex. If the Krath get their hands on it, there's no telling what they'll do." Valen's expression hardened. "That is not your concern, Captain. Your orders are clear. Evacuate now or face court-martial." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving James standing in the comm room, his fists clenched at his sides. He turned to find Maverick, Bull, and Rook standing in the doorway, their faces etched with concern. "What's the plan, Cap?" Maverick asked, his voice low. James looked at each of his squad members in turn, seeing the loyalty and determination in their eyes. He thought of Zoran and Talin, of the hope they placed in him, and the countless innocent lives that hung in the balance. "And we stay," James said, his voice resolute. "We fight, orders be damned." The sky over Zeta Prime turned black as the Krath invasion force descended. Hundreds of sleek obsidian ships blotted out the twin suns, casting an ominous shadow over the once peaceful world. James and his squad, along with a handful of Zetan warriors, worked frantically to fortify the outpost. They welded scrap metal to the walls, dug trenches, and set up makeshift barricades. "Rook, I need those proximity mines set up along the perimeter now," James barked, his voice barely audible over the roar of the Krath dropships. "On it, Cap," Rook replied, sprinting towards the outpost's edge with a satchel full of explosives. The Krath attacked with a fury that James had never witnessed before. Their advanced plasma weapons tore through the outpost's defenses like paper, while their seemingly endless numbers threatened to overwhelm the small group of defenders. James and his team fought back with everything they had, their human ingenuity and tenacity the only things keeping them alive. Maverick, perched atop a watchtower, picked off Krath soldiers with precise shots from his sniper rifle. Each time he pulled the trigger, another insectoid warrior fell, their chitinous armor shattering under the impact of the high-caliber rounds. "I can do this all day," Maverick muttered, a grim smile on his face as he lined up another shot. In the thick of the battle, Bull charged into the fray, his heavy power armor absorbing the brunt of the enemy fire. He wielded a massive energy hammer, crushing Krath warriors with each mighty swing. His armor was dented and scorched, but he showed no signs of slowing down. "Come on, you bastards," Bull roared, his voice a thunderous challenge to the Krath horde. Rook, despite his inexperience, proved his mettle when he saw Talin cornered by a Krath warrior. The insectoid soldier had the young Zetan by the throat, its mandibles clicking with sadistic glee. Rook charged forward, tackling the Krath soldier to the ground and driving his combat knife into its thorax. "Are you all right, kid?" Rook asked, helping Talin to his feet. Talin nodded, his eyes wide with fear and gratitude. "Thank you, Rook." As the battle raged on, James knew that they couldn't hold out forever. The Krath were too many and their weapons too powerful. He made the difficult decision to split his squad. "Maverick, Rook, I need you to evacuate the Zetan civilians," James ordered, his voice strained with fatigue and desperation. "Get them to safety, no matter what." "What about you and Bulls?" Maverick asked, his brow furrowed with concern. James looked his friend in the eye. "We'll buy you as much time as we can. Now go, that's an order." Maverick hesitated for a moment before nodding, his jaw clenched with determination. He and Rook gathered the Zetan civilians and led them into the dense jungle, using their knowledge of the terrain to evade Krath patrols. James turned to Talin, pressing the Zetan Codex into the young warrior's hands. "Guard this with your life, Talin. If we don't make it, you must find the Galactic Council. They're our only hope." Talin's eyes shone with tears, but he nodded solemnly. "I won't let you down, Captain." As Maverick, Rook, and the Zetans disappeared into the jungle, James and Bull prepared for their last stand. They fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their armor battered and their ammunition running low. Just when all hope seemed lost, a Krath dropship landed in the outpost's courtyard. A towering figure emerged from the shadows, its insectoid features twisted into a cruel grin. James recognized the warrior instantly, Krath warlord Zaxxon, a ruthless and cunning commander known for his unbroken string of victories. "Captain James Adams," Zaxxon hissed, his voice dripping with malice. "I've heard much about you and your squad. I must admit I'm impressed by your tenacity." James stepped forward, his body aching with exhaustion but his spirit unyielding. "Warlord Zaxxon, I can't say the same about you." Zaxxon's mandibles clicked with amusement. "You have fought bravely, human, but your resistance is futile. Surrender the Zetan Codex, and I may spare your life. James shook his head. Not a chance, Zaxxon. You'll have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. The Krath warlord's eyes narrowed. So be it. I challenge you to single combat, Captain Adams. If you win, I will order my forces to withdraw. If I win, the Codex is mine. James knew it was a trap. Zaxxon was a legendary warrior, his skills honed in countless battles across the galaxy. But he also knew that this might be their only chance to turn the tide of the battle. I accept your challenge, Zaxxon, James said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. Let's end this once and for all. James and Zaxxon circled each other, their eyes locked in a fierce battle of wills. The Krath warlord towered over James, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming in the harsh light of Zeta Prime's twin suns. Zaxxon's mandibles clicked with anticipation, his clawed hands flexing as he prepared to strike. James knew he was outmatched in terms of raw strength, but he had something Zaxxon didn't, the unwavering determination to protect those he cared about. He settled into a combat stance, his battered armor creaking with each movement. Zaxxon lunged forward, his claws slashing through the air with blinding speed. James ducked and weaved, barely avoiding the razor-sharp edges. He countered with a series of quick jabs, his armored fists striking Zaxxon's exoskeleton with enough force to crack bone. But the Krath warlord barely flinched, his chitinous armor absorbing the blows like they were nothing. He lashed out with a powerful kick, sending James flying across the courtyard. James hit the ground hard. The wind knocked from his lungs. He struggled to his feet, his vision blurring from the impact. Zaxxon stalked towards him, a cruel grin on his insectoid face. You fight well for a human, he hissed, his voice dripping with contempt. But it won't be enough. We've already found your homeworld, Earth. Soon, it will be nothing but a memory, just like Zeta Prime. James felt a surge of anger course through his veins. He couldn't let the Krath destroy Earth, couldn't let them take any more innocent lives. With a roar of defiance, he charged forward, his fists flying in a flurry of blows. Zaxxon met him head-on, his claws slashing and tearing at James's armor. They traded blows back and forth, neither one giving an inch. James could feel his strength waning, his muscles screaming in protest with each movement. But he couldn't give up, not now. He thought of Maverick and Rook, of Zoran and Talon, of all the lives that depended on him. With a final, desperate surge of energy, James lashed out with a mighty punch, his armored fist connecting with Zaxxon's head with a sickening crack. The Krath warlord staggered back, his exoskeleton splintering from the force of the blow. James pressed his advantage, raining down blows upon Zaxxon's weakened form. Around them the battle raged on. Bull, his armor shattered and his body battered, let out a mighty roar as he charged towards a Krath heavy artillery unit. He knew he wouldn't survive, but he didn't care. All that mattered was giving his squad a fighting chance. The artillery unit exploded in a massive fireball, taking Bull and a dozen Krath soldiers with it. James felt a pang of grief for his fallen comrade, but he couldn't dwell on it now. Maverick and Rook, having successfully evacuated the Zetan civilians, returned to the outpost, their weapons blazing. They cut through the Krath ranks like a hot knife through butter, their aim true and their determination unbreakable. Slowly but surely, the tide of the battle began to turn. The Krath forces, disoriented by the loss of their artillery support, began to fall back in disarray. James stood over Zaxxon's broken form, his chest heaving with exertion. He raised his fist for the killing blow, but before he could strike, a massive shadow fell over the battlefield. A Krath warship, its hull bristling with weapons, descended from the sky like a harbinger of doom. Its weapons locked onto the outpost, ready to reduce it to ashes. Admiral Valen's voice crackled over the comm, his tone laced with barely contained anger. Captain Adams, stand down immediately and surrender the Zetan Codex. That's an order. James gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't trust the Galactic Council, not after they had betrayed him and his squad. He made a split-second decision, one that would change the course of the war. Maverick, Rook, take the Codex and the Zetans to safety, he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. I'll stay behind and cover your escape." Maverick started to protest, but James cut him off. "That's an order, Lieutenant. Now go." As Maverick and Rook led the Zetans into the jungle, James turned his attention back to the Krath warship. He knew he had only one option left. With a grim sense of determination, he activated the outpost's self-destruct sequence. The countdown began, the numbers ticking down with an ominous finality. James opened a broadcast channel, his voice ringing out across the galaxy. "This is Captain James Adams of the Human Alliance. The Galactic Council has betrayed us, leaving us to die at the hands of the Krath. But we will not go quietly into the night. We will fight, and we will make them pay for every inch of ground they take. To all the races of the galaxy, I urge you to unite against this common threat. Only together can we hope to prevail." As the Krath warship rained down fire upon the outpost, James closed his eyes, his final thoughts of his squad, of the Zetans, and of the countless lives he had sworn to protect. The self-destruct sequence reached 0, and the outpost exploded in a blinding flash of light, taking the Krath forces with it. The door to the interrogation room hissed open, and Pryler stormed in. His reptilian eyes narrowed. He slammed his palms on the table, leaning close to James. The human didn't flinch, meeting the Gamelon's gaze with unwavering resolve. "You think you're some kind of hero, don't you?" Pryler hissed, his forked tongue flicking out in agitation. "Your actions have thrown the galaxy into chaos. The Galactic Council is in disarray, and the Krath are emboldened by your defiance." James leaned back in his chair, his shackles clinking. "I did what I had to do to protect the innocent. The Council was willing to sacrifice the Zetans and the Codex for their own interests. I couldn't stand by and let that happen." Pryler's scales rippled with frustration. "Your insubordination has led to the deaths of countless Gamelons and other Council races. The blood is on your hands, Captain Adams." James met Pryler's accusation with a steely gaze. "I accept responsibility for my actions, but I would do it all again in a heartbeat. The Council's hands are just as dirty. They've been playing politics while the Krath slaughter entire worlds." The Gamelon officer opened his mouth to retort, but was interrupted by a sudden commotion outside the room. The sound of shouting and running footsteps echoed through the hallway. Pryler turned to the door as a young Gamelon soldier burst in, his face etched with panic. "Sir, we've just received word that the Krath have launched a surprise attack on our homeworld. Our fleet is overwhelmed and requesting immediate assistance." The color drained from Pryler's face. He turned back to James, his eyes wide with realization. "This is your doing, human. Your actions have weakened the Council and given the Krath the opening they needed." James stood up, his chains rattling. "Then let me help. My squad and I have faced the Krath before. We know how to fight them." Pryler hesitated, his mind racing. The Gamelon fleet was formidable, but the Krath had caught them off guard. The humans had proven their tenacity and skill in battle, as much as he hated to admit it. "Very well, Captain Adams," Pryler said, his voice tight. "I will offer you a deal. In exchange for your help in repelling the Krath invasion, the Galactic Council will grant humanity full autonomy and the right to defend its own interests." James considered the offer, his mind weighing the possibilities. It was a chance to protect Earth and avenge his fallen comrades, but he knew the Council couldn't be trusted. "I'll agree on one condition," James said, his voice firm. "The Council must publicly acknowledge the sacrifices made by my squad and the Zetans. They must commit to a more just and transparent governance, one that values all life equally." Pryler's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Agreed. Now let's get you out of those chains. We have a war to win." As James was led out of the interrogation room, he was met by a familiar face. Maverick, his second-in-command and closest friend, stood waiting for him, a grin on his face. "Good to see you in one piece, Cap," Maverick said, clasping James's shoulder. "We did it. The Codex is safe on Earth. Rook and the Eggheads are already working on deciphering it." James felt a surge of pride and relief, but it was tempered by a sudden sense of unease. "Where's Talon? Is he with you?" Maverick's grin faded and he looked away. "Cap, I'm sorry. Talon... He didn't make it. The Krath ambushed us on our way to the extraction point. He sacrificed himself to protect the Codex. James felt a wave of grief wash over him. Talin, the young Zetan who had looked up to him, the one who had believed in the prophecy and the power of the Codex, another life lost in this endless war. He took a deep breath, pushing the pain down. There would be time to mourn later. Now he had a job to do. "Gather the squad," James said, his voice steady. "We're going to show the Krath what happens when you mess with humanity and our allies." As James and Maverick walked towards the hangar bay, ready to lead a new coalition of human and alien forces against the Krath, he couldn't help but think of the long road ahead. The war was far from over, and the price of freedom and justice would be paid in blood. But for the first time in a long time, James felt a glimmer of hope. The Galactic Council, for all its flaws, had finally acknowledged the strength and determination of the human spirit, and with the power of the Zetan Codex on their side, they might just have a chance to turn the tide. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88,